What if I told you that one man transformed a small, almost forgotten tribe into the most feared military force in southern Africa? A king whose name alone made entire villages flee before a single battle had even begun. This is not a legend. This is the extraordinary story of Shaka Zulu. But here's the question that historians still debate today. Was he Africa's greatest military genius, or one of its most feared rulers? How did a boy who faced rejection and hardship grow into the leader who revolutionized warfare with tactics so effective that they changed history forever? What made his warriors so disciplined that larger armies often stood no chance against them? And why did the very empire he built eventually turn against him? In this video, you'll discover the real story behind Shaka Zulu's rise to power, the brilliant strategies that transformed a small tribe into a military superpower, the battles that reshaped southern Africa, and the shocking betrayal that ended the reign of one of history's most legendary warrior kings. Stay with me until the end, because the final chapter of Shaka Zulu's story reveals a lesson about power, leadership, and legacy that still inspires and challenges people today. Let's begin.
Before Shaka Zulu, the Zulu people were not an empire. They were small, divided, ignored by powerful kingdoms around them, weak compared to surrounding tribes. No one feared them. No one respected them. And then, one man changed everything. A rejected child. A boy who grew up without protection. A young warrior who was laughed at, insulted, and pushed aside. But what he built later was something Africa had never seen before. A military system so strict, so powerful, so disciplined, that entire kingdoms collapsed when they heard the Zulu army was coming. Not because of numbers, but because of strategy, because of fear, because of Shaka Zulu. And in the next minutes, you will see how a broken tribe became one of the most feared military forces in African history. But the real question is this: how does a rejected boy build an empire that changes war forever? The answer is more shocking than you think. Yellow Circle Part 1. The World Before Shaka. To understand Shaka, you must understand the world he was born into. Southern Africa in the late 1700s was not peaceful. Tribes competed for land, cattle, and survival. Power meant everything. Weakness meant destruction. The Zulu at that time were not a major power. They were just one of many small groups living under pressure from stronger neighbors. Survival was the goal, not expansion. War existed, but it was slow, traditional, and often limited. Battles were fought at a distance. Spears were thrown. Warriors often avoided close combat because it was too risky. There was structure, but not domination. And into this world, Shaka was born. Orange Circle Part 2. The Rejected Boy. Shaka's early life was not one of privilege. He was not accepted easily. He faced rejection, isolation, and humiliation. Even within his own community, he was seen as different. Weak in status, but not weak in mind. That is where everything started. Because rejection can destroy a person or sharpen them. For Shaka, it did something else. It made him observant. He studied how tribes fought. He watched how warriors trained. He noticed something important. Everyone was fighting the same way. No one was innovating. No one was changing the rules. And that became his first advantage. While others followed tradition, Shaka studied weakness. Red Circle Part 3. The Rise of a Warrior. Shaka eventually joined military service under the Mthethwa alliance. This is where he transformed. He was not just strong. He was strategic. He questioned everything. Why fight from a distance? Why retreat when injured? Why not push victory fully instead of partial success? At first, his ideas were unusual, even dangerous. But leaders noticed something. Shaka did not just win fights. He dominated them. And slowly his reputation grew. Not as a normal warrior, but as a different kind of mind. A mind focused on total victory. Cross Swords Part 4. The Revolution of Warfare. When Shaka gained power, he changed everything. He did not just improve the army. He rebuilt it. First change, the weapon. He replaced the long throwing spear with a short stabbing spear. This forced warriors into close combat. No more hesitation. No more distance. Only direct confrontation. Second change, the shield system. Shaka introduced large shields designed not just for defense, but for control. Warriors could push enemy formations like a wall. Third change, discipline. His soldiers trained brutally. Long marches. Barefoot running. Endurance beyond normal limits. Weakness was removed from the system. Only strength remained. This was no longer a tribal force. It was becoming a machine. Blue Circle Part 5. The impis system. Shaka organized his army into structured units called impis. Each unit had specific roles. Young warriors at the front. Experienced fighters behind them. Elite soldiers reserved for decisive moments. This was not random fighting. This was controlled destruction. And then came his most famous tactic. The horns of the buffalo formation. One group attacked from the center. Two groups surrounded from the sides. And the final group crushed escape routes. It was not just a battle strategy. It was psychological warfare. Enemies felt trapped before the fight even ended. Purple Circle Part 6. Fear becomes a weapon. Something unexpected happened. Shaka's army became feared even before arriving. Villages would hear rumors and flee. Some surrendered without fighting. Not because they were weaker, but because they believed resistance was useless. This is where Shaka changed history. He did not just win wars. He changed the psychology of war. Fear became a weapon. Reputation became armor. And discipline became unstoppable power. Part 7. Expansion and control. As victories increased, so did control. Smaller tribes were absorbed. Larger kingdoms were challenged. Shaka did not just conquer land. He reorganized society. He demanded loyalty. He demanded structure. And he demanded discipline at every level. The Zulu kingdom expanded rapidly. What was once a small group became a regional power. But expansion came with cost. Because power always creates tension. Red Circle Part 8. The price of power. Shaka was not only a strategist. He was also strict. Extremely strict. Discipline was absolute. Disobedience was not tolerated. Even emotional weakness was seen as danger. This created fear inside his own ranks. The same system that made the Zulu powerful also made it unstable internally. Because when a leader demands perfection, he also creates pressure that eventually breaks something. And that something was loyalty. Black Circle Part 9. The fall begins. As years passed, suspicion grew. Allies became uncertain. Family ties weakened. Power began to isolate Shaka. Even those closest to him started to fear what he had become. A man who could reshape an army, could also destroy opposition within his own circle. And history shows us one truth. Great power often creates great enemies. Blue Circle Part 10. The end of Shaka. Eventually, betrayal came from within. The man who built an empire through discipline and strategy was brought down not by an enemy kingdom, but by internal betrayal. His death marked the end of an era, but not the end of his impact, because the system he created did not disappear. It lived on. It influenced warfare long after him. And it still remains one of the most studied military transformations in African history. Green Circle Final Part. Legacy. Shaka Zulu was not just a king. He was a strategist, a reformer, a man who proved that size does not determine power. Structure does. Discipline does. Vision does. He turned a small tribe into a military force that changed how wars were fought in Africa forever. And even today, his name is remembered not just as history, but as transformation. From rejection, to domination, to legacy, ending. But here is something most people never ask. Was Shaka Zulu building an empire? Or building something he could no longer control? That question changes everything. What Shaka Zulu built was not just an army. It was a system built on discipline, strategy, and absolute control. And even though his life ended in betrayal, the impact of what he created did not disappear. It lived on in history. It shaped how people understood warfare in Africa. And it proved something powerful. That a small group, when trained with vision and discipline, can rise against anything. Now before you go, think about this. Shaka started with nothing. No empire. No global support. No powerful allies. Just ideas, discipline, and a different way of thinking. And that changed everything. If you enjoyed this story, then you are clearly someone who values real history, powerful storytelling, and untold African legends. Because this channel is not just about videos. It is about bringing forgotten history back to life. And this is only the beginning. There are many more stories like Shaka Zulu waiting to be told. Stories of kings. Stories of warriors. Stories of empires that shaped Africa. So if you want more powerful historical videos like this, make sure you subscribe to the channel right now. Turn on notifications so you never miss the next story. And don't forget to like this video, because it helps this content reach more people who need to hear these stories. Comment below and tell me, what African warrior or king should we cover next? I read your comments, and your suggestion might become the next video. Till then, remember this. Greatness is not about where you start. It is about what you build from it. See you in the next video.